Welcome back to you folks for another episode of Comedy Luxembourg's Finest Metal Podcast. I'm super pleased today because Alex Becerra from Nostalgia is back, and this time in video format, so I'm quite pleased because that's making quite a big difference nowadays, you know.
No, it does make a difference.
Yeah. How are you, mate?
It's definitely not AI talking to you.
No. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm very excited about the new release. It's been the longest time I've spent between two releases.
That's my first point, actually, that I wrote down. You've never been so quiet, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, there was one comment on a Facebook post, and they told me something like, "It's been 6 months since your last record. You're getting lazy, bro."
I mean, okay, it's a bit exaggerated though, but lazy is a big term, obviously.
of course, but it's been a long time, you know, and especially for me, I just kind of feel restless when I'm not working on new music.
Yeah,
there's just kind of like always this urge that I wanna take care of. So it's been a long time for me. It's going to be almost a year since the last release.
Yeah.
So that's a long time for me. So I'm very excited to share the new album, very excited to work on it. And I'm just letting myself get carried away by the ideas, really. It's a very special record.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the folks out there don't know yet. Basically, the reason why we have Alex here today, as he mentioned, the new record, Void Ecstasy, is on the way. There's like 2 singles that came out probably, I think, simultaneously, if I'm not mistaken, at the same time, or maybe a week apart, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, what do you mean the
singles, the Waves and Paracosm?
They were released on the same day. Actually,
sorry, it was the same day.
It was like a double
release.
track release.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a single, but
yeah, okay, my mistake.
No, I know. It's just that I just call it a single because it really is. I'm used to releasing singles like that as one single track.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when I released the single for Phaneron, the first and second track were the same, and it was like 9 minutes long because it's essentially part of the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
But this time I just thought, I'm just gonna have it as 2 tracks because in the final record it's gonna be 2 separate tracks, and they are quite different too. So
yeah,
so I thought it was probably the best idea.
I mean, I'm gonna be very honest here. I followed you obviously, and was quite excited because there was such a long, let's call it long gap, even though it's just a year in between new music. And I'm gonna be honest, it was not what I expected, but it was definitely not Nostalgia, to say the least. I really like
I understand
jazzy.
what you mean.
You're going way more like, let's just call it jazzy and personal. I feel even more personal on this record than stuff like, for me, Terminal Lucidity was like the best in terms of personality for me. But I feel this will be even further down the rabbit hole, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. Actually, Void Ecstasy is possibly going to be the most, let's call it, avant-garde experimental record that I've worked on. And the reason is basically that when I finished Nepenthe last year, I really thought, mate, where can I take black metal now? I mean, I've been trying to make every one of the 12 albums I have. I've been trying to make them different from each other. Each one of them, I want them to have a different personality, a different color, if you will. And after Nepenthe, I just really thought, well, the kind of things I wanted to do with black metal were kind of exhausted. I mean, there's obviously lots of things I can do with this metal coating. That's the way I call it. It's just a coating.
That's true.
Yeah, and Void Ecstasy is definitely going to be black metal infused, just like every other Nostalgia record. But in this occasion, the difference is that every track is radically different from each other. Even those two, even the double track release, Waves is, well, if you've heard them, right? Waves is it begins as quite a post-rock kind of ambient track.
Up.
With this kind of relaxed atmosphere and psychedelic effects. and then it gets really noisy, kind of drony. And then the second track is more black metal influenced. There's blast beats and there's lots of dissonance and so on. But you haven't heard half of it yet. So the rest of the album is also very different from this. And as I'm working on it, sometimes I have to. I just did this. I am working on a track right now. I won't spoil things for you, but let's say that I wanted to make it kind of dancey.
Okay.
I wanted to make it kind of. I wanted it to have kind of a Latin jazz sort of vibe to it.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Because you're right. I think I'm really amping up the jazz influences on this one. But then I thought, this is good, but this is not what I want for this record. It's too different. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I find myself in that sort of dilemma. This is right, but it's not focused. So I am trying to find a balance in the songs that I'm creating right now, so that Void Ecstasy feels like quite a trip, and it takes you from one place to another, and you go back home, which I think it's always a very satisfying feeling. But I also want it to be focused, because even myself personally, I don't like it when albums just go all over the place and it just feels very gratuitous, and I don't like that. So I am doing my best to keep it focused and tight, but it's a challenge always, kind of, to find that balance.
For sure, yeah.
But I am sure that you will be pleasantly surprised.
I'm looking forward to it. I mean, as said, for me, we talked about this last time you won a podcast. I mean, that was at the time where Terminal Lucidity came out, and to me personally, that's just me talking here and my fanboy-ish nerddom. Basically, I really enjoyed. Like, I will not say Nepenthe was not my cup of tea, but Terminal Lucidity touched me in ways that Nepenthe did not. But I think that was kind of intentional, because for you, basically every record is so different. Obviously, those, I will say, not necessarily music connoisseurs, but people who are not into this kind of music will, everything sounds the same, but it's definitely not the case with you. So I'm really excited to see where Void Ecstasy is going, because again, you promoted it with the artwork as well. And if I remember correctly, you choose the artwork first, and then.
Oh yeah, that's always the process. Actually, I have it in my background.
Yeah, I can plus minus ish see it. So
yeah, maybe not this part, but
yeah,
it's in the background now. And I always get inspired by album covers, well, by artworks first, and then and then I turn them into my album covers. But this one in particular, obviously, it always begins as just an idea, just a concept. Normally, when I begin an album, what I want to have is a vision. Mm-hmm. I think that's the best way to describe it. I want to have a vision. So, for example, when I worked on Terminal Lucidity, all I thought was, I want this album to be pink. I want this album to be sensitive, intimate, passionate, emotional, and vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Remember, I used the word floral to describe it.
100%. Yeah, it's a floral record, right?
Yeah, and that's what I was aiming for. But then, when I was working on Nepenthe, my vision was, I want this album to be dark and ugly and spooky, and I want it to be a story. I want it to be conceptual. I want it to be kind of a suite. Okay, with different movements, and those are the ideas that I usually have with records before I begin working on them. And then usually I already know what picture I want for the cover. So I already knew this painting. I got acquainted with it a few years ago, and I remember thinking, wow, that's something I want. But I didn't see I didn't really have a concept for this painting before, so I just let it exist. Mm-hmm. Until it was the time for me to own it. And the concept for Void Ecstasy was, my vision, for Void Ecstasy was, I want this record to be a sort of emissary for psychedelic states of mind. Mm-hmm. Okay. Psychedelic experiences have been of great influence in my creative processes. I've been having these experiences for quite a few years now, maybe 5 or 6 years, and I've been having them maybe, what have you, 5 to 10 times a year.
Hmm.
So it's been quite a few trips now,
Yeah.
and there's always something new in them, and there's always something um, mind opening about these trips. You never know what they're going to teach you. And I thought it was the time for me to honor this state of consciousness, which is a psychedelic experience.
Hmm.
And I wanted to be a sort of messenger of that state of mind with Void Ecstasy. I wanted to convey that kind of mental space with the music, which is honestly impossible.
Yeah, it's a task, right? I mean,
It's impossible.
yeah.
I think everybody who has ever had a psychedelic experience will say the same thing. It's not something that you can just talk about to other people. You cannot just explain it in words. And honestly, music also falls a bit short. There isn't a way to explain that because it's literally a different state of consciousness.
Yeah.
You would need to be in that kind of mental
State of mind.
frequency
Yeah,
to
yeah.
so it's obviously not gonna be accurate. And sometimes I am afraid of actually going into cliches. The psychedelic aesthetic is very well established.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go there. I want Void Ecstasy to honor the state of mind and not just use psychedelics as an aesthetic, because I don't like that either. I want it to be a truly psychedelic record, and that obviously means that it's going to be kind of eclectic, sparse.
Not necessarily. I will just say maybe not necessarily cohesive at first listen, or at there's just too much detail in the way of listening to this record, probably.
Yeah,
because there's just. I mean, I felt like that for the single, basically the double single.
Yes, something, and I realized something, and this is this is really what clicked for me making this record. The truth is that there hasn't been any one of my psychedelic trips, and I probably had like 40 or 50 by now, so it's been a lot of them. But there hasn't been one single experience in which I listened to metal music, and that is something that caught my attention a few months ago. I thought, why don't I listen to metal? I love metal. But anytime I choose a record to listen to on psychedelics, specifically LSD, I choose it very carefully so that I will perceive this music on a different level. Because, listen, I'm a musician and I am supposed to have a very good ear, a very good perception of
sound,
musical qualities. Exactly. So I remember thinking, well, I'm a musician. I don't think it's going to be that different. But then the first time I listened to music on LSD, I thought, wow, it's like I've never even had any ears. It's like having a more receptive, more open relationship with music, and you can savor every texture and every part of it. And anytime I choose music for psychedelics, I just realized that it wasn't metal. I was choosing progressive rock, psychedelic rock. I was choosing industrial music, electronic music, experimental music. And I was choosing all sorts of stuff, but I was never choosing metal. And what I figured out is that metal, as it usually is, as even I write my metal music, is not fit for that kind of state of consciousness. It might be just too linear, I suppose. I actually listened to part of Nepenthe. I actually listened to part of Nepenthe, the first song on Nepenthe on psychedelics a few months ago, because I am experimenting with that. Part of the process for Void Ecstasy is literally listening to the music on psychedelics, on LSD, monitoring the music that I am making in that state of consciousness and thinking, okay, this already sounds the way I want it to sound. Everything is there. It sounds so right. But when I listen to Nepenthe, which is a great record, I love Nepenthe. I think it's my best so far. But when I listened to it, I just realized that it was very plain. There was nothing much to get out of it except, well, heavy riffs and
Yeah,
brutal blast beats and whatnot.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But then I got more interested in exploring textures, exploring these overwhelming, dense walls of sounds that are so pleasing to listen to in the psychedelic experience, because that is the kind of music that I love listening to on LSD. If I want it to be dense, I want it to be crushing. And I just realized that metal is not really fit for that. So what I'm trying
Yeah,
to do for Void Ecstasy is having this kind of maximalist soundscape in which, I mean, if you listen to it on psychedelics, because I already did, I listened to Waves and Paracosm, the singles. I already listened to those on LSD. And I was so pleasantly surprised. I was thinking, wow, these these sound fire. And I was feeling so proud because obviously I'm not working on the record while on the influence of psychedelics, because it's impossible.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
inspired by the experiences, but I'm not
You
working on
basically
them.
awaken all the senses with, let's say, if it's LSD or other psychedelics, and it's, I mean, helping to focus not necessarily on the work itself, but on the experience is tremendous.
Yeah,
So
honestly, I'm just actually the concept for Void Ecstasy is that every song is about a different stage of the psychedelic experience. The terrifying ones, often terrifying and
yeah,
overwhelming, and the more clear-headed states of consciousness that you also achieve. So there's a bit of one thing and the other, and that's why it's also very, very diverse. But I listened to the songs and I thought, wow, this sounds exactly the way I imagined it. I kind of have to put myself in that psychedelic mental state,
yeah,
even if I'm not. And I have to be thinking, okay, this is going to sound great on LSD. And I have to be thinking about these transposition of headspaces. And I got to be working on the texture and the synthesizers and the guitar effects. And I got to be thinking about that. How's this going to sound on LSD when I actually listen to it on LSD?
that's such a, I mean, interesting, but obviously again psychedelics. But hey, such an interesting way for you, like going through the whole process. It sounds more like, to me, if the way you're explaining it, at least to me, I would definitely compare this approach to okay, a musician is an artist, but a lot of painters, for example, uh, as you probably know in history lessons or whatever, you psychedelics are never far off and open up a broader spectrum, a broader vision. Let's just say
They do.
vision. And I feel for you, at least the way you playing with Void Ecstasy and maybe the others as well, it's just such a different approach of, personally, of any musician I know. It's just, it's not like I'm writing music. I know what I want, but I go back. I question myself. I question the choices, because but definitely you're doing that, and
Yeah,
it
all the time.
improves. I think it improves the way you portray music, even though it took, like, let's say 1 year plus minus to create something else. But was that this gap because the writing process was so different and so personal again?
Yeah, that is definitely true. Actually, that's why I didn't really have the release date at 1st, because my rule, my self-imposed rule, was that I was only going to publish the album once it sounds the way I want it to sound on LSD. So the final test is to listen to the full thing, start to finish,
Finish, yeah.
on LSD, on a peak experience, and to get it on the very highest part of the psychedelic experience, because there are different stages, right? But
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
actually, Void Ecstasy kind of refers, the title refers to that part of the experience.
yeah.
There is a part of the trip in which you might feel like you are engulfed by this kind of void, black hole, and it can be a very terrifying experience. But if you let go, you will feel at peace. Some people compare this to a near-death experience. I personally don't think it's so much that, maybe because I have a very good relationship with death, so I don't really associate it that way. Um, but to me, it's more like becoming nothing, but accepting that and feeling very much at peace with the idea of this kind of self-destruction, and it's a very pleasant feeling.
That's very poetic, man. That's super poetic, actually.
It's a great feeling, and in order to get that kind of are you still there? I am.
I'm there,
Just got frozen for a second. But in order to get that kind of mood, well, I need to listen to it myself in that state of mind, and I will do it. I mean, I haven't really had the final test. I expect to have it in the next few months. Once the album is 100% done, I need to do that, and I need to confront my fears.
Yeah.
My fear is that it won't sound as good as I imagine.
I mean, would that be, just random question, would that be a bad thing? Because, I mean, you have the songs ready in a regular state of mind. Would it be okay? Not as a, again, just to release music, but I feel like you could not live with the fact that it's not how it should be.
Yeah, it'd be very difficult. It's a revelation, and it's part of, like I say, it's like confronting the fear that it's just not the way you imagine it.
Yeah.
Like I've said, I listened to the first 2 tracks already, and they sound great. They sound way better than I imagined, and it's really opened up for me this kind of parallel that I can make, in which I can already visualize what the sounds will be on psychedelics, even if I'm not. So I expect that it will be what I expect, or at least very close to what I expect. But if it's not, listen, mate, if it's not what I expect, it doesn't matter. I always think that I cannot obsess about a release, because then I will never finish it.
Yeah.
And that's actually why I had this 3 albums per year kind of pace, because sometimes I finish the record, if I am 100% honest with you. Sometimes I finish a record and I think, this song, maybe it's not that good. my realization is that it didn't turn out the way I expected. Maybe it sounds a bit weak to me, or a bit unpolished, but that's where I was at the time.
Yeah.
So I just accept that fact and I publish it. And it always turns out that the tracks that I like the least are the ones that other people like the most. It's usually the case.
You never know.
So I don't really mind it. In the end, if I can convey these messages that I want to convey, or these ideas, and other people appreciate them, I am okay with that. Obviously, I make my albums mainly for myself, but I also do care that it can reach people and move them.
Yeah.
So who knows, man? I'm not gonna obsess over Void Ecstasy either. I know that the final test is listening to it on psychedelics, but you know what? If it turns out different than I expected, I'll just publish it anyways. Actually, I don't know how familiar you are with psychedelics.
I mean,
have you had a psychedelic experience? I know that I'm not interviewing you, but I think
I mean, it's a fair question. I mean, let's say the hard stuff was always a no-go for me, but and I would not say weed is definitely a different experience. It's not this as, I don't know, you can't really focus with weed, for example. And
no, but weed, it's a totally different.
Yeah, it's a totally different thing. So I think the closest I got to that was how you call it again? It's morphine, basically.
But that's that's I mean, I haven't tried it, but
Yeah,
but
I
it's
was in the
definitely
hospital
not
back then, but I remember having like a very weird experience the first
yeah,
time
I
I got that.
imagine. I imagine that, but no, it's a different thing. Psychedelics
Yeah.
are very safe. They are very noble drugs, and they're not addictive. They're not harmful. And this is very well backed up. We are living a kind of psychedelic renaissance because it was basically pushed to obscurity for several decades. But then now it's coming back in scientific research and the
Yes, that's
findings
true.
about the possible uses in mental health and
Yeah.
so on. That they've been just coming back with a vengeance.
Mhm.
But I was asking that question because there's a term in psychedelic literature which is set and setting. The set is how you visualize that the experience will be. What do I mean by that? If you have an expectation about the psychedelic experience, if you think about it as maybe a mind-opening experience, a life-changing experience, and you embrace it, you will probably have a very pleasant experience. But if you're afraid of it,
Yeah.
if you're unable to let go, and you haven't mentalized the fact that this is going to be a heavy experience and that you're probably going to have to change a lot of your preconceptions of reality, it's probably going to be a very scary one.
Hmm.
So the way you visualize all of this before you actually take the drug is a very important part of it. The setting is your environment. If it's in your room and if you're with people that you trust or
Yeah.
not, which is also very
Plays a role.
important
Yeah,
to it.
definitely.
So the set, the way that you visualize or that you embrace the experience can also affect the way you perceive the music.
Hmm.
You know that. So I know, I know for a fact that if I listen to the full album when it's finished, I already have this expectation that it will sound the way I want, and that's not a very good idea because expectations do not go very well with these kind of exercises in creativity. I wish I could simply listen to the album unexpectedly, by accident,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
and then say,
Unfocused,
"Wow,
let's
this
say.
this
Like,
shit's
oh.
great."
Mhm.
Yeah, but no, obviously, when I listen to it, I will do it with an expectation, and I know that will probably, surely, affect the way that I will perceive it. So I am going to kind of trust my intuition, but not that much.
Mhm.
If it sounds good, well, that's great. But if it doesn't sound good, it might be just that my mental space is being very maybe I'm being very hard on myself, which is often the case.
I
You
can
know,
hear that.
no, it's true. When I listen to Nepenthe, I remember thinking, this sounds a bit dirty. Um, it sounds muddy, and I didn't like that.
That's a good term, actually. Yeah, muddy, actually. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Correct.
I remember hearing the music and thinking it's a bit muddy, and I didn't like the sound and the textures, and I didn't like any of it. And then I got kind of depressed for a few days because I was thinking, oh man, I really need to improve as a producer specifically. I already like myself very much as a composer, but as a producer, I still have a lot to learn. So I was thinking, well, man, I really need to improve on my sound engineering and my skills on music production and how to make this song sound fat and spacious and all of these things that I like in music, because I was very concerned in composition before, but now I am very concerned in production. So uh, I know that I can be very hard on myself sometimes. So I need to kind of just push those thoughts away and also come to terms with the idea that I'm never going to have a perfect record. It's fine.
Yeah, I was
And
going
no
to say.
matter how good I get at anything, no matter how good I get at writing or performing or producing and all of that, it's never going to be 100% perfect. So it's fine, whatever it is at the end, I know that I will embrace it. I know that I will just let it go and let it exist as part of who I am right now as a musician. Maybe next year, because there will definitely be more records next year. Maybe next year I'm gonna do better. Yeah, and I'm going to use what I've learned and these kind of different mental states also as inspiration. I mean, Void Ecstasy is not the first time I do that. When I wrote Teonanacat on Phaneron, that was a song specifically made to be listened to on psychedelics. And yeah, it's a bit muddy. I mean, it sounds a bit dirty to me still, but it sounds good. I listened to it and it sounds good. And I think it captured the essence of what I wanted. You know, even Teonanacat is the name of a psychedelic mushroom, Mexican one.
Okay, that I didn't know that, but okay. But it's quite interesting as you explained. How do you like go back? I know a lot of musicians. They, as you said, if it's what you expected, let's assume it will be that the record will be released. How much space do you need from this creation? Will you go back like instantly, or will you? Because I feel that you are. I will not say, since you're so harsh on yourself, you know, you might go back like on a very short notice and say, this could have needed some more polishing. Or are you like the guy, okay, it's out there, do whatever you want with it, and I'll need some space, because I think that really is a need.
We really do. I really do need it, actually. The point is that when you're working on music, for as long as I work on it, which is from 5 to 10 hours every day, I usually get here on my computer and I work on my albums from about 12, at noon, and then maybe I finish at about 7 or 8. If I start later, well, then I finish later, but it's usually like 5 to 10 hours every day. So if you're listening to your own music and you know your music inside out, and you're doing this every day for so long, obviously you're going to notice the flaws.
Yeah.
Obviously you're going to pay just too much attention to these minute details that nobody else is really concerned about. Nobody else even notices them. But I do. So I do need some space, Actually, one of my, not on Void Ecstasy, because that's a completely different record, but on my other records, what I usually do is I finish the song. I just finish it. Let's say I finished the first song of an album. I just let it be and continue with the next one. And I don't listen to the first one until maybe the record is finished, or maybe in about a month or so. And then I listen to it again just casually when I'm going to the shop to get some snacks, or when I'm just going on the subway. I just listen to it casually, not fully focused on it, but just kind of listening to it the way I listen to other music. And if nothing is really very distracting, I just kind of let it be. All of my records have mistakes. They do. There's even like a WhatsApp notification sound in one of my songs.
Really?
And really it is.
Okay.
You can hear the tip sound on a solo. I won't say what song because I don't want to point the attention there. But,
okay, I will go for half then.
but it's there, and when I hear it, I notice it because now it's there and I cannot unhear it. But I don't think anybody notices.
I clearly did not.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff. There's clicks of my mouse and my keyboard because I have one of these mechanical keyboards.
You sometimes hear the clicking, yeah.
And sometimes you can hear the click like just at the end of a take, and it's there, and I know it's there, and it's a bit
and it's annoying.
Kind of annoying. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but who cares? Mistakes. There's been mistakes in all sorts of great records too.
Yeah,
Pink Floyd has mistakes. The Beatles have lots of mistakes. Led Zeppelin has lots of mistakes. There's mistakes everywhere, and they're classic records, and nobody cares. And I think especially today, it's very important to come to terms with the fact that you're a human being and that the art that we are making is imperfect. Because I'm not afraid of AI. I don't think AI is going to replace musicians or anything like that.
No, because the emotion and the feel is just, it can't be reproduced.
Yeah, I do think that people need to educate themselves on the things they consume,
Yeah.
In the case of music specifically, people really need to have a music education. And I say that because I don't think it's AI's fault that fake bands are getting a lot of listeners. I think it's the listener's fault for not being able to discern the real thing from something which obviously
differentiate
sounds
what is real and what is not real. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like those pictures. I mean, I don't blame people who fall for them because I guess they're lacking the media literacy to distinguish what definitely looks AI generated or not. But I think we should all be wary of that and begin to take these factors into account to recognize actually human-made music. So if I make a mistake, or if there's like this weird static sound, or if the timing is not perfect, I don't care. That's what makes my music sound human.
Yeah.
And
speaks for you, man. It's who you are.
Exactly. So I don't care. I've been trying to be less hard on myself lately, because I can be very self-demanding. Not because I want this to be the best record of the year. No, I don't care about any of that, but I do care that I like it myself.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I can be very picky. That's the thing. I just don't like everything that I listen to. There's a lot of shit.
I get it. I mean, you said it earlier. For example, while you were experiencing these trips or these more detailed experiences, it's never with metal, and I have to agree. Very often, like if I look for inspiration, or not even look for, most of the time when I get inspired, if it is for, okay, I can't really say podcasting because that's a different story. But as you know, I mean, I do my own small, because I never wrote music until a few years back, and that's very new to me. So these moments happen out of the blue, and usually there's music involved, but it is, as you said, it is never the music that we both like. It's never, very rarely metal. It's something totally different, and it's just so evocative and so personal, which I feel now, especially nowadays, and that's something you mentioned as well. Nowadays, metal music is conceived again with totally different eyes and ears. It's not the bad boy anymore. It's becoming mainstream. It's becoming, which is, I mean, it's good for the entire scene, but a lot of it, the real stuff, gets buried below and gets forgotten.
I like to think that there is nothing wrong, obviously, with metal becoming mainstream.
Yeah.
You know what? You know the band Knocked Loose, right?
Yeah.
And you know that they were on this talk show. If I've forgotten the
Jimmy Kimmel
host's name.
Yeah.
I think so. And I was thinking, well, this is kind of weird because it's not like just a regular metal band. It's a hardcore band. It's a metalcore band with screaming and breakdowns and all of that. And I thought it was a bit strange to see that kind of stuff on
public TV. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, exactly. It was kind of strange. But then I realized that a lot of people still are filtered by this extreme approach to metal, because there was kind of a negative reaction from a lot of viewers.
Yeah.
And I think, well, it's a good thing. I also think it's a good thing that definitely some metal music is not for everyone. And I'm not trying to be a gatekeeper or anything like that. I mean, I think it's great that people get introduced to extreme metal and more experimental or more adventurous types of music. I think it's great. But I don't think art should be pleasing. I think that's the least thing that art should be about. I think that if a piece of so-called art is pleasing to everybody, then it's probably not very artistic. I think art, when it's honest and it's real, there has to be an element of risk. There has to be an element of adventurousness and exploration.
And surprise as well, I think.
And surprise, exactly. And I really do think that it's great that it's still not for everybody. Yeah,
which is, as you said, I mean, that's kind of our remaining green flag in terms of I'll just call for the entirety out there. Us as metalheads, obviously, there are some bands that we, yeah, this, I mean, I'm gonna say it, like, I discovered Nostalgia out of the blue, and that was like, how in the hell, first of all, how in the hell did he write so many records in such a short amount of
Sure.
time, you know? And then how come everything to me sounds cohesive? Because while I was discovering you, I was on a progressive, atmospheric trip,
Hmm.
and black metal was never like a no go for me. So for me, that was very, very cohesive and very, very like interesting. But even like guys that I know, I recommended Nostalgia to whoever I could, and like, now this is definitely not for me. So even like in the metal scene,
Oh
there
yeah.
is this. I'm not going there. You know, I'll stay with my metalcore. Or I stay with, I don't know, the modern metal era, which obviously gets promoted very well, and
Oh, it
which is a
does. Yeah.
good thing. But I really hope that like people who were either watching Knocked Loose on Jimmy Kimmel or Spirit Box, because they were on apparently a few weeks after that.
Yeah, and I think Gojira was
Yeah,
on the what was that? The
the
Olympics, I think.
Olympics, that was like a big moment, right? Where
Yeah,
like, okay, this
it's
is a different approach to.
it's very interesting indeed. And again, I am glad that it's still making people uncomfortable. It should make people
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
exactly.
I
It's
think
not meant
part
to
of
be, as you said. It's not always pretty, and it's not always happy tunes that
yeah,
they can be.
it shouldn't be. It shouldn't
It
be.
shouldn't be.
And right now, for example, now that I'm working on Void Ecstasy, I sometimes I'm thinking of passages for songs which will be definitely uncomfortable for people who listen to them. I want people who listen to Void Ecstasy to question what they like,
I,
because you know that I have, I think not on Instagram, but on Facebook I have Nostalgia Black Metal, and
yeah.
I only did that to separate myself from this Nostalgia girl who was on John
Oh
Wick
yeah, yeah,
2.
yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted a way
It's
to,
easier. Yeah, obviously.
for people to know that I'm not that. But lately, I've been thinking, well, I'm distancing myself from black metal lately, which is good because I think it should happen eventually. I mean, look at Opeth. After what was that, 7 albums, they started working on
Yep.
progressive rock, and I think it's one of their best albums, Damnation. And then they came back to death metal, but there was a lot of folksy elements as well,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of this progressive vibe too. And then they just went on
Full.
full
Yeah.
psychedelic
Yeah.
rock, progressive rock, and there's barely any death metal anymore. I think the last record has some of it, but
Yeah. But
they had a few records that were not metal at all.
yeah, yeah.
And obviously, people who expected them to continue on this vibe, well, they didn't like that. But I know, and I've said this before, I know that possibly most of the people who listen to Nostalgia aren't, black metal fans.
That's
They are
true.
not like true metalheads. I know that the people who listen to my music are probably more. They have a broader musical palette.
Yeah. Open-minded. Let's say. Very
Yeah.
open-minded.
So
I should.
so
Yeah.
so lately, I've been also kind of. I've been trying not to think too much about whether what I do is black metal or whether it's emo, screamo, or whether it's progressive rock. No, I just do whatever I want to do at the moment.
Yeah.
And what keeps the project together as it is metal music.
Mm.
That is right. I mean, the core of the music is
Yeah.
still black metal, but I don't care if it just goes off rails for a while. So again, it's all about balance.
Yeah.
But I've been trying to do that. I've been trying to make people uncomfortable lately, especially in this latest record. Sometimes I'm working on a very noisy section, and then I go like, well, this is noisy, but it could be even noisier. It could be uglier. It could be more overwhelming. It could. I want this part of the record to make people so uncomfortable that they want to stop listening. That's the kind of stuff I'm aiming for now. At some parts of the record, and I want them after these very intense moments. I want maybe kind of a rest area for
Mhm.
people to just lie down and kind of process what
What they
just happened.
experienced, yeah.
But I want that. I love that. I love it when music is uncomfortable. It's a feeling that I don't often get, if I'm honest. If a piece of music can make me uncomfortable, I see that as an achievement. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
I see
yeah.
that as success.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen too often.
I mean, talking about that, I think for me now, if I look at the first, even though I've been listening to metal probably as you, like for as long as I know, and it started all with my dad. But hey, uh, I got never overwhelmed until I discovered Amen Ra, and I saw Amen Ra. I'm not sure if you're aware of this band. It's a post metal
No,
band from Belgium.
no, I don't know.
It's very very drony, very like doom is probably not the right term, but it is kind of doomy if I just going to put some genres on it. But
Hmm.
I saw a video of their live performance, and these guys, it was open minding in terms of what is this? This is not a concert I'm watching. This is a ritual. This
Oh
is
yeah,
yeah,
I love
you
that
know,
feeling.
and that was like so. It blew my face off, and I fell in love with this
It's,
band.
isn't it just great when you experience that kind of aesthetic peak in which you feel this kind of destruction
Yeah,
of your preconceptions. I love that part. I think everybody who is familiar with extreme metal had that experience in which maybe you were just listening to Metallica or Iron
yeah,
Maiden
yeah,
because that's what you knew, right? That was your entry point, and then suddenly you found out about, I don't know, fucking Dark Throne
yeah, yeah.
or maybe Cannibal Corpse, and then you found out about these more extreme forms of
Yeah.
metal, and you didn't even think that
It would
music
be
could get
possible. Yeah,
that
yeah.
that music could get that overwhelming and that intense.
It
And then you
happens
can
really
go even beyond
quickly.
that, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And then you keep exploring all of these limits of what music can be or not.
yeah.
And you end up, if you're curious enough, you end up in really weird places.
True. Yeah,
For example, myself, I am very much a fan of. This happened to me. This peak experience, I had it when I was a teenager because I've always been interested in jazz music,
hmm
and I first got interested in jazz music and also performing jazz
yeah.
when
You
I
play the
was
drums,
about,
right? Like a jazz
yeah,
drummer.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I remember. Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. I am
I mean,
I
primarily
am a
it's your
jazz
instrument. Yeah, yeah.
musician, and my main instrument is the drums.
hmm
Where so when I started to play the drums, well, a few years after I started playing the drums, I really wanted to play some jazz. So my entry points in the genre were, things that everybody can enjoy,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or at least most people won't really be filtered by that.
Yeah,
Like Dave Brubeck's "Time Out," which is a
yeah,
great record,
yeah, yeah.
and I remember that record kind of got me introduced to odd time signatures and metric modulation and some wild stuff, but it's very digestible. And I started with that and some Herbie Hancock and some jazz
Ah, yeah,
fusion,
yeah.
and then I loved all of that. But then, out of the blue, I listened to free jazz, and I remember that my first free jazz record was Meditations by John Coltrane. And I
Okay.
remember that when I first listened to it, I was probably like 16 or 17. And I remember thinking, what the fuck is this? Okay, can I even call this music?
Yeah.
It was
It's
Pharoah
yeah,
Sanders and John Coltrane going full blast on their instruments. They made the instruments scream and cry, and it was like a wail of pain and longing,
yeah,
and it was very spiritual to me as well. I could hear in all of this, on all of this wall of noise, I could hear this kind of spiritual call for cleansing and redemption, and it was just such a great experience to
mm,
listen to this record to me. And I remember thinking, whoa, this is my stuff. you know I want music to make me feel this way.
yeah,
I love music that makes me feel overwhelmed by these intense emotions, whether they are dark or joyful. Because there are records that make me feel joyful as well.
yeah.
It doesn't
100%.
have to be all negative. Um, and sometimes it's about a balance. There's
Yeah.
this record by Pharoah Sanders, actually, which is called "Love in Us All," and it's the first piece is very joyful. you know, it's the theme of the song goes something like "Love is everywhere, love is everywhere," and it's just a very joyful song.
Yeah, yeah,
You just feel like you're in love with life and humanity. But then the next track, the side B of the record, is so dark and so chaotic. And then I remember thinking, yeah, man, this is what it's all
this is
about.
what you. Yeah, yeah. This is what you're looking for, basically.
Yeah,
The
light and shadow.
challenge, like, yeah, yeah, light and shadow. That's the right term. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and that's also what I wanted to do with my music, which is why Nostalgia's music is at at times it can be very intense and very dark and very ugly, but then it can get calm and introspective
yeah.
and bright, and sometimes one and the same thing.
Mhm.
Sometimes I do try to achieve the same kind of, not alternating between these moods, but kind of just in between, this bittersweet feeling. And it's just something that I aim for. And yeah, the Void Ecstasy is full of that as well. Kind of
I'm so looking forward, dude. This will be interesting. This will be very interesting.
it will be. I hope it will make some people uncomfortable. Honestly, I am looking for that. I want some people to stop listening to me after they listen to Void Ecstasy. I want them to go like, huh, when they listen to it, and I want them to complain, oh, I like Nostalgia when they were just like black metal.
So you
Yeah.
basically want a cliche.
Yeah.
I can
want,
kind of indirectly.
yeah, I want maybe like 0.5% of my audience to just go like, I wish they would go back to Au Milieu de l'Hiver. This is just so weird and it doesn't make sense. I want to to kind of go like
I
that.
mean, I'll go for it, and I'm sure. I mean, your listeners by now, at least if they've been through your whole catalog, they heard the single. So I think I will not say they are expecting what is to come, because that's again a challenge that you set for yourself to be a challenge and to like
Yeah.
differentiate yourself from the one Alex that did the previous record. So it's such an intriguing and interesting approach to.
Right. I think I even told you this before. I don't remember, but when I am working on an album, I am not the person who is speaking to you right now. I always visualize myself as a sort of character, a creative persona. And that's why every record since Duelo has a different character. You know, the picture is different. The color is different because it's not really me. I mean, it's
Yeah.
what I write about in Nostalgia, or what the music is about thematically, is not necessarily something that reflects myself deeply. It's just something that I think about, something that concerns me, something that I fear, something that maybe I can find solace in. But it's a different mood and it's a different time of my life as well, and I'm trying to kind of reflect that. But it's obviously not me all the time, just the same.
Yeah, sure.
And
it-
I try to reflect that even in the characters that you see in the pictures.
yeah.
Every one of the pictures that I use is supposed to reflect a different person, a different author.
It really speaks for you, dude. I mean, this is personally what I enjoy a lot. If I mean, talking to you, or now with White Ecstasy on the way, you create this kind of like this urge to. People don't know what to expect, and yet they do.
I love that. I think there was a review on Bandcamp one time that I read, and and I hope it's the case for people who listen to my music, that they know that whatever record I release will be way different from the previous one.
Yeah.
But then you still get surprised.
Yeah.
And that's honestly something that I want to achieve. There's nothing wrong with sticking to one certain sound. I think a lot of bands do it, and it's okay. You know, there are a lot of bands that I like kind of go that way. For example, I like the Black Dahlia Murder.
Mhm.
It was very influential to me when I was a teenager, and it's one of the bands that got me interested in extreme music.
Mhm.
So there's a bit of nostalgia there, but I like their records, and they're great musicians. But to be honest, most of their albums do kind of sound the same.
Agreed.
And there's
100%
nothing
agree.
wrong with it. Still, Cannibal Corpse, same thing.
Yeah.
Most of
It
the
doesn't mean
records
that
are
it's bad. It's just who
it's
they
the way
are.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's where it is, and it's fine. But it's not something that this is the separation that I need to make. As a listener, I don't care. As a listener, if a band releases two albums which are very similar, it's fine. I can listen to it. What will it take? 40 minutes of my life?
Yeah.
I don't care. I mean, it's not something that will make me upset or will make me write it won't make me file a complaint and say, hey, this is too similar to the previous one, please delete it. No. But as a composer, that's the part that I cannot take.
Mhm.
Whatever I learned in my previous record as a musician or as a producer, there's that. I don't want to go there anymore. I don't want to get stuck in the same place, just using the same template, the same song
Yeah.
structures, the same kind of harmonies. I have a self-imposed rule, actually, which is I need to learn something new and apply that something new for every song that I make. There needs to be one thing. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be a small thing. Maybe I learned about this weird, exotic Arabic scale or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
And I just learned about it, and it has a weird ass name like Super Hyper Mixolydian Flat 5, you know? It gets crazy sometimes. And I'm like, okay, what's this? And I learn about it and I apply it, and I think, this could be fit for this part of the song. And I just leave it there. And that's it. That's the thing I learned, you know? And it could be about harmony, it could be about rhythm, it could be about production.
Yeah.
For example, with Void Ecstasy, I'm learning a lot about synthesizers because every single song in Void Ecstasy uses synthesizers, and I never use them. There isn't one synthesizer in Nepenthe. There is one synthesizer in Terminal Lucidity. It's at the end of Fade.
Yeah.
It's kind of a very noisy,
Yeah.
very crunchy synthesizer sound. And I used it in Tunanakat, but there had been literally only two songs of mine that used synthesizers. It just wasn't my thing before.
Mhm.
But here's the thing: this year, I've been paying very close attention to electronic music, and you wouldn't believe it. I literally kind of got fixed on electronic music production, and I learned a lot. And I was listening to a lot of house music and K-pop music, trance, I don't know, electronic dance music in general, actually. And I even produced a few tracks. I'll tell you about that later. I shouldn't have said that. But there's a surprise coming anytime.
Okay, good to know.
But all of these things that I've been learning about music production, you know, the kind of techniques that I probably should have learned before, but I didn't take the time because I didn't need them. All of these techniques, I've been applying them to Void Ecstasy. Lots of things that are there in the background. And it's taking me a very long time. Normally, if I write an album, it takes me maybe two months. Okay.
Mhm.
I can write a 50-minute album like Nepenthe in 2 months, start to finish.
That's crazy.
Actually, Nepenthe kind of took me 2 months and a half, which is why it was released so soon after Terminal Lucidity. I can finish records very quickly, even if they're really long, even if they're complex. I have a very good inner ear, I think. So I can just be like, I don't know, I can just be outside or having lunch, and my brain is generating all of these songs, and I can hear them very well in my mind. All I have to do is sit down and play them and record them. I don't even write it down because it's there, and I can just put it out very easily. But Void Ecstasy is taking me a very long time because there's lots of things that I have to learn, lots of things that are new to me. Again, mostly in terms of music production. It's very easy to make an album like Nepenthe because all you need is the drums, guitars, a bass, and occasionally maybe a piano or strings and so on. It's all very traditional kinds of arrangements. But in Void Ecstasy, I'm trying to explore different textures and different possibilities of sound, and I'm trying to create sounds on my own from scratch. I was literally playing around with some pans and pots from
Oh, really? Okay.
And just kind of manipulating the sounds and making these kind of electroacoustic sound environments. And I'm doing all sorts of weird shit that I'm not used to do, so it's taken me a long time. Actually, Void Ecstasy is going to be quite a short record, probably about 40 minutes. So that's 10 minutes less than Nepenthe. And it's taking me way longer because I am being more adventurous and also more careful, more attentive to detail than I was before. So what usually would take me about 2 months, now it's taking me about 4. So that's double the time that it usually takes.
Yeah.
It's very challenging, mate. It's very challenging. And sometimes I get really frustrated because
so, I mean,
the sounds that I imagine, which are not traditional sounds.
Yeah, especially if you want to create them or reproduce what you hear, what you think you hear.
Oh yeah.
And you don't have the right instrument. You have to basically come up with the idea. How do I create the sound? So basically, you have your own sound library, baby.
Yeah, exactly. So that happens to me lately on this record. My inner ear is telling me about what I hear are these very unusual textures. Maybe I've heard those textures before in a different song, and then I want to have something similar, but then I need to know how to create it, how to achieve that sound, and that's what's taking me a long time. Sometimes it's as easy as doing some quick research and finding the name of the instrument or the synthesizer. And it's just that when I was working on Tuna Nakat, which I told you, it's the first time that I use synthesizers. I really wanted to steal the sound from Pink Floyd's Welcome to the Machine.
Okay.
And I really wanted that. So what I did was I looked it up, what synthesizer was used in the song, and it came up. It's a Minimoog. And it's like, okay, is there a Minimoog virtual instrument? Because obviously I won't have like a literal Minimoog. I can afford that. I won't find it, and I probably won't be able to afford it. So I was hoping to find a virtual instrument for Minimoog. Luckily, there was one. And then I looked up a tutorial on how to manipulate sound on this virtual instrument. And I think I kind of got a similar sound. It was not exactly what I wanted, but it was very close. And that's enough. And it's the same now for Void Ecstasy. I get all sorts of weird noises in my head. I can only describe them as textures, like a crunchy texture, like a kind of sound. Or maybe a sweeping texture, like
a wall of sound. Yeah, like a wall of sound, like with not one sound, not two, but an ensemble of
listen,
noise, basically.
I have a relatively powerful computer, and it has to be because I process a lot of tracks together.
Yeah, I guess
it's relatively powerful, but still, the songs I'm working on right now, they overwork my processor.
Oh damn!
And I need to work on it in small sections, and then I have to freeze the tracks, render them in as an audio file instead of with all of the effects, and then keep working on it. But it's been a slow process even that way, because there's a lot of stuff going on at the same time in some sections, and that's what I want. That's what I want to achieve. I want this sense of openness and vastness in sound. But imagine that sometimes there's like 20 sounds in my head at the same time. And then I need to find them. And if I can't find them, I need to create them. And it's a very slow process because now I'm not just going the route of, okay, it's a guitar sound, it's a guitar riff. No, I am not much concerned about riffing and chugging anymore. I am more into all of these timbres and creating sound from scratch and combining these sounds together to create these paintings. So it's very challenging, and I know for a lot of people it might be more style than substance. It's possible a lot of people will perceive it that way, kind of as an exercise of sound art or sound exploration.
Yeah, sounds.
But I'm also trying.
Detail, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm also trying to make it, intense and groovy, and I think you can see some of that in the tracks I released. Sure, they are very dense. There's lots of stuff going on, but they're also just. I think they go hard. Honestly, when I listen to them, I also get this kind of. You can bang your head to it. You can tap your feet to it.
Yeah. The rhythm and as you said, the groove or the hook basically is there and is uncanny and is definitely you. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, there will always be part of me in whatever I make, even if it's really different from the usual. So I'm not concerned about distancing myself too much from what I did before, because that's always been my goal. I don't want to sound the same, but I know that for some people it will be maybe too different. Maybe.
I'm so looking forward to it.
Who knows? Maybe it will end up being my best-selling record. Who knows? You never know. It's always so unpredictable.
Trust, man. I mean,
fingers crossed.
You never know. I mean, we've got like a huge amount of detail about like what has been going on with Nostalgia over the last year or last several months. The record is coming out. We have to stop here though, so I'm going to thank you very, very much for all this amazing detail. Again, a very in-depth view of where Nostalgia is going with this record, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. So I'm really excited. You didn't make it easy waiting. So
yeah, well, sorry about that, but I'm also very excited. Honestly, sometimes I wish I could publish the albums before schedule, because as soon as I finish, I just want to press publish. It's like, okay, I'm done. This is the last part. I'll publish it now, but no, I know that I need more time, also for myself. But sure. I am also very impatient, so hopefully you will love it. So thank you for having me, mate.
You're always welcome, dude. And I will definitely give you feedback. And for you out there who don't know what Nostalgia is all about, I will put everything in the link below. Like and subscribe, follow Alex, because honestly, this is not your regular black metal project. So, and yeah, thanks again for coming, and we see each other very soon. And until the next time, then.
Thank you, mate. See ya.